The air felt tight, heavy, like something had gone wrong in the night and was still deciding how much it would cost her. Her heart stumbled once, then steadied. Panic had never paid rent. Silence had. Her name was Ruth Carter. She stood there, keys still warm in her hand, and looked at the men who did not belong in her shop. They looked at her the way people look at something small they expect to move when told. None of them smiled. None of them explained. This was how trouble announced itself. Ruth was not tall. Her hands were thick with years of work, knuckles shaped by needles and steam and stubborn fabric that refused to lie flat. Her back ached every morning before she even stood up, but her eyes were steady. They had learned steadiness long before this moment. The shop smelled like ironed cotton and old wood. It had one window, one fan that rattled when the heat came, and a bell that rang soft when customers entered. Most days were quiet. Too quiet. But quiet had a way of teaching you how to listen. The day before, a man had walked in wearing a suit that cost more than everything she owned combined. It didn't fit him. The sleeves pulled wrong. The shoulders sat too proud. People like him usually walked past her door without seeing it. He had come in late. Just before closing, Ruth saw the problem before he spoke. She always did. Fabric told the truth if you listened. She told him it would take a few minutes. He asked the price without looking up from his phone. She named it low and fair. He waved a hand, distracted, and said he had no time. She studied his face then. Not the wealth. Not the watch. The tired line between his eyes. The way his shoulders carried weight they didn't want. She told him to sit anyway. He hesitated. People always did. But something in her voice had no edge, no need. He sat. She fixed the suit in silence. Small changes. Careful work. When she finished, the suit belonged to him at last. He stood, surprised. Looked at himself. Then at her. She told him it was fine. No charge. The words fell into the room and stayed there. He frowned. Asked why. She said because some days you help because you can. And because dignity should never be rushed, he left with a nod, not fully understanding what had passed between them. Ruth closed her shop and went home to her small apartment above a closed bakery. She ate soup and counted the week's numbers again. They didn't change. That night she dreamed of her father's hands. Ruth learned the trade from him. He had stitched in the back of a dry cleaner, humming low, his voice soft like thread slipping through cloth. He taught her patience. He taught her that seams mattered even when no one saw them. When he passed, the shop became hers. The bills did not slow. The city changed around her. Rents rose. Old neighbors left. New shops came and went. Louder and brighter. Ruth stayed. She stitched wedding dresses for joy she was not invited to. She hemmed uniforms for men who never learned her name. She fixed coats for winters that felt longer every year. She learned how to be invisible without being small. So when the lawyers stood in her shop the next morning, she did not apologize. She did not explain. She simply waited. One of them finally spoke. The words were neat, legal, heavy. They said she had altered a suit belonging to someone important. They said there were rules, liability, permission. Ruth listened. She folded her coat. She set her keys down. She asked one question. Did the suit fit? The men paused. They did not answer. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. People passing by slowed. Someone from the cafe across the street leaned out. A woman who brought her hemming twice a year stood near the window. Confused, silence stretched thin. The lawyers pressed again. Papers slid forward. They wanted signatures, statements. Controlled Ruth felt the familiar pressure behind her eyes. The same feeling she had known when landlords raised rent and smiled. When suppliers stopped extending credit. When customers asked for discounts, they never asked. Elsewhere, she did not raise her voice. She said she fixed what was broken. She said she did not break anything. One lawyer scoffed. Another checked his watch. They did not see the old sewing machine in the corner, the one that still worked because Ruth cleaned it every night. They did not see the photo on the wall of her father smiling, needle between his fingers. They did not see the years stitched into the floor. This was authority versus quiet dignity, and the room could feel it. Hours passed. Then the door opened again. The man from yesterday stepped inside. He did not wear the suit. He wore something simple. His presence changed the air without effort. Conversations outside stopped. The lawyer stood straighter. He looked at Ruth Dottie. Looked at the papers, he asked, "What was happening?" They spoke fast, defensive, careful. Ruth said nothing. He turned to her and asked if she fixed his suit. She nodded once. He asked if she charged him. She shook her head. Man closed his eyes for a moment. He told the lawyers to leave. They hesitated. He did not repeat himself. The shop emptied the way a room does. When truth finally speaks, the man stayed. He asked Ruth why she helped him. She told him she saw a man who needed a moment to breathe. And because her father taught her that skill meant nothing if it didn't serve people. He sat in the same chair as the day before. He said something that stayed with her. Wealth can buy silence, but respect is always earned. He left again. The next day, people came. Not all at once, but steady. Word traveled the way good stories do. A banker who needed repairs. A teacher who refused a chain store. A young woman who wanted her grandmother's dress altered with care. A sign appeared in the window, small and plain. Community Tailor. Fair work. Honest hands. Ruth never put it up. Someone else did. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Not legal. Personal. Inside was a check that made her hands tremble, and a note that said, "Kindness is not forgotten." She did not cash it right away. She sat with it. Thought of rent. Thought of the machine. Thought of the years ahead. She cashed it the next morning. She fixed the fan. She bought better thread. She paid her bills. She stayed. The lawyers never returned. The crowd outside her shop grew on weekends. Not loud, respectful. People waited. Ruth worked. She became a quiet lesson in a city that forgot how to slow down. When asked why she never told her story, she answered without drama. Some work speaks for itself. Another time, when a reporter tried to frame her as lucky, she shook her head. I was ready long before anyone noticed, on the day she finally replaced the old sewing machine. She kept the first one in the corner. It had earned its rest. The billionaire sent business, not favors. Business, he learned something too. That free help can cost more than money, and be worth every bit. On a warm afternoon, Ruth locked her shop and stood outside, watching the street move. She felt tired. Good tired. She thought of all the times she almost closed. All the times silence was her only shield. And she smiled, because dignity, once chosen, cannot be taken. If this story moved you, take a moment to comment where you're watching from and what part stayed with you. Share it with someone who believes quiet strength still matters. And subscribe for more stories that honor the heroes who never asked to be seen.